Everyone in the kingdom thought the princess would marry a prince, live in a palace, and forget the past. But on the night before her royal wedding, a secret came crashing out of the shadows. The man she was being forced to marry was not a hero, he was a monster. And the only person brave enough to save her, was a homeless man she hadn't seen in years. A man everyone called worthless. A man she once knew as a child, the same boy who saved her from a burning house and then disappeared like smoke. But when he returned, bloody, scarred, and unbroken, the entire kingdom learned the truth. You can't kill a heart that has survived fire. And on that night, love didn't just fight back, it rewrote destiny. Night had fallen on Kajana village, but peace did not last. The moon hung low, half covered by clouds, casting a pale glow over mud homes, thatched roofs, and sleeping goats tied to wooden posts. Palm trees swayed gently, and the air smelled of roasted cassava from evening fires now dying out. But then it happened. A scream, sharp and piercing, tore through the silence. Then another. Then the sound of cracking wood. And within seconds, the sky turned red, not just from fire, but from fear. The chief's mansion, the largest and wealthiest home in the village, was engulfed in flames. Men ran barefoot through dirt and dust. Women wrapped cloth around their heads and clutched their children. Drums began to strike, not for dance, but as an alarm. Fire, fire. Smoke rose like a black pillar toward the sky, swallowing the stars. Inside that burning house, a child was trapped. Amina, just 9 years old, the only daughter of Chief Baraka, a man feared and respected, wealthy beyond measure. She was sleeping when the flames started, her small body curled under a blanket, her favorite doll made of corn husk beside her. By the time she woke, coughing, the fire was everywhere. The ceiling creaked, sparks fell onto her hair, wooden beams collapsed, the air was thick, choking, suffocating. She screamed, "Baba, help!" But no one answered. Outside, Chief Baraka was frozen, unable to breathe, speak, or move. His knees trembled, his lips shook. Tears streaked down his face, turning to steam near the heat. "She's still inside," he cried. "My daughter is burning. Do something." But no one dared. A soldier stepped back. A neighbor shook his head. A guard muttered, "We cannot enter. The fire is too strong." They formed a circle, watching, but not acting. Too afraid to risk their lives. Too afraid to catch the flames. Villagers whispered, "She is gone. No one can reach her now. God take her soul." And in that moment, hopelessness swallowed the night, until someone moved. Not a warrior, not a guard, not a wealthy man, but a boy. A boy with dust on his feet, ragged clothes, and eyes that had seen too much pain for his age. Cato. A homeless orphan. A child of the streets. A boy without a bed, without family, without value, according to others. People noticed him only to insult him. Useless street dog. Fire boy. Waste of air. He slept in discarded sacks. He ate food thrown away for goats. He survived on rainwater and mercy. But he had something the others didn't. A fearless heart. Without a word, Cato ran toward the burning home. "Hey, stop," someone shouted. Another yelled, "You'll die, boy." But he didn't stop. He didn't slow down. He didn't think of himself. He only thought of the girl. Flames roared like beasts. Wood fell like lightning. The heat was strong enough to blister skin from meters away. Still, Cato ran straight in, barefoot. He covered his mouth with his arm, bent low, and pushed deeper inside. Smoke stung his eyes. His breathing grew shallow. But he kept going. Furniture burned. Curtains turned to ash. The air tasted like metal and death. He heard a cough, weak, fading. Amina. He followed the sound, stumbling, pushing falling debris aside. A burning beam fell across his shoulder, and he screamed in pain, but didn't stop. He found her in a corner, trembling, trapped under a broken roof beam. Her eyes were barely open. Her braids were singed. Her face was covered in black soot. She looked at him, confused. "You're not a guard." Cato didn't speak. He lifted the burning wood, skin tearing in the process, and freed her. He tore his shirt, wrapped it around her face so she could breathe, then lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light. He wondered if she'd ever eaten enough in her life. He held her tight and began to run back the way he came. Floor planks cracked. Rafters snapped. One struck his back, hard. Still he moved. Smoke filled his lungs. His vision blurred. The world spun. But he kept going. He stumbled through flames, protecting the girl with his own body. He crashed through a half-burned doorway. And finally, staggered into the open air. A gasp went through the crowd. People stepped backward, in shock. Cato, the homeless boy, stood before them, burned, bleeding, coughing violently. but alive, and holding Amina. He laid her at her father's feet. Chief Baraka collapsed beside her, weeping, clutching her small hands. Cato fell face first onto the dirt, unconscious. When he woke hours later, wrapped in bandages from palm leaves and soaked cloth, the fire was gone. The crowd was gone. Chief Baraka was gone. Everyone was gone. No one waited. No one thanked him. No food. No water. Not even a word. Just silence. Except, a shadow approached. It was Amina. Still weak. Still trembling. But alive. She knelt next to the boy who saved her. With tears in her eyes, she placed a small hand on his cheek, and whispered, "One day, I will find you. I promise." Cato didn't speak. He didn't need thanks. He didn't need reward. He was just relieved she was alive. But fate had heard her promise, and the night that should have ended in death, had just begun a story neither of them could imagine. The fire was forgotten by the village in 7 days. Celebrations returned. Drums returned. Laughter returned. Life moved on, because that is how the world is. But not for Cato. He carried the burns on his arms, his back, and his shoulder, marks of a night no one remembered except him. And Amina. But she was taken away. Chief Baraka moved his daughter to the capital, away from danger, away from old memory, away from a place where she could have died. And Cato, he was left behind. Still homeless, still alone, still invisible. Years passed. Cato grew into a young man, tall, quiet, and strong from surviving the streets. He could lift sacks of grain heavier than men twice his size. He ran faster than horses. He learned to fight because hunger taught him to. But still, no home, no money, no name, just whispers. He's the boy who runs like wind, the stray dog who survived fire, the trash child. But they didn't know the truth. Cato remembered every face, every insult, every door slammed on him. And he remembered Amina, not as a princess, not as a chief's daughter, but as the small girl who touched his face and promised, "One day, I will find you." One evening, hunger drove him to work at the dock. He carried crates, tied boats, hauled nets, anything for coins. The foreman shouted, "You, fire boy, move faster." Cato didn't argue. He never did. Pain taught him silence. But then a storm broke, fierce and sudden. Waves crashed. Boats slammed into each other. A fisherman lost his footing and fell into the river. "Help! Help!" The water was violent, swirling, pulling, drowning. Men watched but did not jump. But Cato did. He dived in, slicing through water like a knife. He found the old man sinking, lips blue, body limp. Cato grabbed him, pulled with every muscle in his body, until they reached shore. He wasn't rewarded. The old man survived, then stood up, and slapped Cato. "You ruined my money bag. It was in my pocket." Cato didn't defend himself. He just walked away, soaking, shivering, hungry, still invisible. But fate was not done with him. One morning, travelers arrived, rich ones, from the capital. They wore royal robes. They carried scrolls with golden seals. The village gathered around, curious. One of the royal guards read aloud, "By decree of the high throne, all able young men may test for royal service." A chance, a door opening, not for everyone, but for someone like Cato. It was breath. He stepped forward. Laughter erupted. "You, the homeless, the burned boy, you have no family, no papers, no name. Go back to the trash heap." Cato stood silent, but he did not step back. The guard asked, "Do you have anything to prove who you are?" Cato answered, "I have nothing. Except strength, and honesty, and a heart that has walked through fire." The guard held his gaze, and for the first time, someone saw him. Not as trash, not as a stray, but as a man. He nodded. "Come." And so, Cato left the village, with nothing but the scars on his body and the memory of a girl he once saved. He didn't know the capital. He didn't know the rules. He didn't know how big and cruel the world truly was. But he walked toward it anyway, toward a path he had never been allowed to dream of. The capital was not what he expected. Grand stone buildings, markets full of spices, fountains shining in the sun, and a palace made of marble, tall as the sky. But there was also cruelty. Rich men spitting on poor ones, children begging for bread, guards beating a man for stealing fruit. Cato saw all of it, in silence, and kept moving. The test was brutal. Climbing stone walls, running for miles, fighting with wooden staffs, lifting weights until arms trembled. Hundreds tried, dozens quit, only 7 made it through. And one of them, the strongest, was Cato. But when the names were read, they skipped him. The announcer said, "And now, the chosen 6 will serve the king." A noble boy smirked and whispered, "He doesn't belong with us." Cato didn't fight. He didn't protest. He simply walked away. But fate, again, had other plans. A royal advisor stepped forward. He had watched quietly, observed everything, and seen something others didn't. He stopped Cato with one sentence. You fight like a man who has lost everything, but still stands. Cato didn't reply. The advisor continued, I know your face. You are the boy who saved the chief's daughter. Cato's eyes widened. That was so many years ago. He thought the world forgot. But the advisor smiled. She did not. Cato's heart stopped. Amina. The girl from the fire. The girl taken away. The girl who made a promise. The advisor spoke again, softer now. She remembers. That night changed her life. Cato whispered, where is she? The advisor pointed, toward the palace gates, gleaming in sunlight. Inside, Cato stood still. All the hunger, all the pain, all the rejection, led to this moment. He took a breath, then stepped forward, toward the palace, toward fate, toward the girl he saved. Not knowing that destiny was already waiting for him, and it was not done testing his heart. The palace gates were larger than anything Cato had ever seen, carved in gold, guarded by men in iron armor, and watched by eyes that judged silently. Cato's heart thundered in his chest, not from fear of guards, but from one single name echoing inside him. Amina. The girl he saved. The promise she made. The memory that never faded. He looked down at his clothes, rough, torn, stained by travel. He felt small. Unworthy. But still, he walked forward. Because that is what a man does. When life has given him nothing but reasons to give up, he walked anyway. Inside the palace, everything felt unreal. Marble floors. Walls painted with history. Servants dressed in silk. Perfume and incense in the air. Too beautiful. Too rich. Too distant from the world he knew. Yet, somewhere inside this place, lived the girl who once touched his burned cheek and wept. Amina. He wondered, would she still remember him? Or had life polished her heart into glass? A royal servant led him down long hallways, past fountains, past towering columns. Cato spoke only once. Why am I here? The servant replied, because someone requested you. Cato's breath caught in his throat. Amina. It had to be her. Finally, they reached a large door, carved with the royal crest. The servant bowed. Wait here. Cato stood alone, hearing nothing but the pounding of his own heart. Then, the door opened, and she stepped out. Amina. No longer a crying child covered in smoke and fear. Now a grown woman, tall, graceful, wrapped in deep royal blue fabrics. Her hair braided with gold. Her eyes, wide, bright, unforgettable. But when she saw him, everything changed. Her royal posture faded. Her breath caught. Her lips trembled. Cato. He didn't speak. He couldn't. For a moment, they were children again, standing in firelight. Smoke. Tears. A promise. Amina stepped closer. Cato, you're alive. Yes, he finally whispered. And you remembered. She smiled, a real one, filled with warmth and grief. How could I forget the boy who saved my life? They walked into the garden, a quiet place with old trees and soft wind. Amina spoke first. I searched for you for years. My father forbade it. He said you were no one, just a street rat who got lucky. She lowered her voice. He didn't want me to owe my life to someone poor. Cato nodded slowly. He understood too well. People loved heroes, as long as they were wealthy ones. Amina continued. I begged the royal guards to look for you. I paid men to ask. But the village said you vanished. Cato's voice was low, steady. I didn't vanish. I was always there. They just refused to see me. Amina's eyes softened, guilt melting into sorrow. Cato, I'm sorry. No, he replied. You were a child. You did nothing wrong. Silence. The wind shifted. A leaf fell. Time paused. Then she whispered. I never stopped thinking about you. I kept wondering if you were safe. If you were alive. If you ever ate a full meal again. Cato swallowed hard, pain rising from a place buried deep. No, not always. Amina stepped closer. Then let me fix that. She arranged food, enough to feed 10 men, but Cato ate slowly, quietly, with dignity. He had starved before. Hunger no longer controlled him. She watched him, noticing every scar, every burn. You still carry the fire on your body. Cato nodded. And in my memory. Amina touched his arm, gently, respectfully. I owe you my life. Cato looked into her eyes, and spoke truth. No, I didn't save you because I wanted something in return. I saved you because it was right. Her breath shook. That's why you're different. He stayed in the palace as a guest, but people whispered. Who is he? A beggar? A stranger? Why does the princess speak to him alone? Jealousy grew. Rumors spread. But Amina did not care. She gave Cato clothes, a place to sleep, food without question. Every day they walked and talked, about life, about pain, about dreams buried under hunger. Soon, the truth took shape. They were not just girl and savior. They were two souls who had lived with loneliness, in different cages. She, in a palace. He, in the streets. But both trapped. One evening, under lantern light, Amina said, "Cato, stay. Don't go back to the gutters. Serve here. Train here. Live here." Cato stared into her eyes, the same eyes he once shielded from flames. "Why?" he asked softly. Amina's voice broke. "Because the world has taken too much from good men. I won't let it take you too." Those words shook him. All his life, he fought alone, bled alone, cried alone. But now, someone saw him, not as trash, not as a stray, but as a man worthy of staying. Cato nodded once. "I'll stay." Amina smiled, not like a princess, but like a friend who had just found something precious she thought she lost forever. He trained with royal guards. He learned discipline. He learned strategy. He learned to fight like a warrior, not a survivor. And people noticed. Cato was no longer a whisper. He became a name of strength. But deep inside, a truth was growing. He loved Amina, not because she was a princess, but because she remembered him, when the world chose to forget. But fate was not finished twisting. A royal announcement came. Amina was to be married, to a prince, from another kingdom, for political peace. And just like that, Cato's heart cracked. The girl he saved, the girl who remembered, the girl who brought him into the palace, would soon belong to someone else, not because she wanted it, but because power demanded it. Amina stood before him, eyes full of sorrow. "Cato, I don't want this." He didn't speak. Pain choked every word. Amina whispered, voice trembling, "I wish I could choose my own fate." Cato finally answered, low, steady, breaking. "Then choose." She closed her eyes. Tears fell. "I'm trying. But in this world, trying is not always enough." The palace was drowning in celebration. Musicians rehearsed early. Perfume burned in the courtyard. Rich fabrics arrived from ships. Gold plates were polished. Flowers were hung from every window. A wedding was coming. A royal wedding. But inside Amina's heart, there was no music. Only dread. And inside Cato's chest, there was no air. Only pain. He had survived hunger. He had survived fire. He had survived a world that never cared for him. But this was different. He could not fight this with fists. He could not outrun it. He could not bleed his way through it. The kingdom had decided. Princess Amina would marry Prince Jabari. A wealthy, respected, powerful ruler from a neighboring land. It was peace. It was politics. It was tradition. But it was not love. And everyone knew it. Except the ones who did not care. The first time Cato saw the prince, he understood everything. Prince Jabari arrived with 40 guards, clothed in silk, covered in jewels, smiling like a man who believed the world already belonged to him. He saw Amina, and did not bow. He did not even look at her with respect. He looked at her like property. Then he noticed Cato, standing behind her, not as a servant, not as a guard, but as something unexplainable. The prince's eyes narrowed. "Who is this?" Amina answered calmly. "He is under my protection." That angered him. No man stands beside a future queen unless he is commanded to. Amina spoke again, this time sharper. "Then consider him commanded." Cato said nothing. Because he knew this was not a moment for fists but for patience. Later, in the garden, Amina spoke in a low voice. "Cato, I need to tell you something." He turned toward her, and in her eyes, he saw fear. "My father, he is forcing this. The kingdom needs alliances. He says love is a luxury, not a duty." Cato's voice was quiet, but heavy. "Do you love him?" "No." "Then refuse." Her voice broke. "I tried. My father threatened to strip me of my title, ban me from the place, call me unfit." Cato inhaled sharply. The world always made rules to protect power, never love. Amina whispered, "I wish I was free." Cato spoke, not as a dreamer, not as a child, but as a man. "Then don't marry him." She closed her eyes, wanting to believe that choice was hers. But it wasn't. Not yet. The wedding preparations grew louder. Silk, gold, dancers, royal invitations. Everyone celebrated. Except two people. Amina and Cato. And the palace began whispering. "They speak too closely. The princess trusts him. Is she in love with a beggar?" Rumors always grow fastest when the truth is nearby. The king heard those whispers. And one night, he summoned Cato. Not in the throne room. Not in public. But in a private chamber, where warning felt like law. "Cato," he said coldly, "you have been treated well here." "Yes, my king. You train with warriors. You eat at royal tables. You sleep under a roof built for nobles. Yes. The king's eyes turned sharp, piercing. Do not forget who you are. Cato did not answer. He didn't need to. The king stepped closer. You will keep distance from my daughter, or I will have you removed from this kingdom forever. Still, Cato stayed silent. The king leaned in, whispering now, you are nothing. And love does not make you more. Cato lifted his head, eyes steady, calm, unbroken. I saved her life, and I allowed her to repay that debt. It ends now. But Cato answered with the one truth the king could not erase. Debts end. Love doesn't. The king's face twisted. Choose your next steps carefully, boy, for they may be your last. Time moved closer to the wedding. 7 days left, then 5, then 3. Amina appeared every day, eyes more haunted. She wore royal clothes. She smiled for guests. She waved from balconies. But inside, she was dying. One evening, she stood alone in the palace garden and whispered to Cato, I feel like I'm being buried alive. Cato looked at her, really looked, and saw the girl from the fire. The girl who cried. The girl who trusted him. The girl who said, one day, I will find you. He stepped closer, only one breath apart. Amina, do you trust me? Her voice trembled. With my life. Cato spoke words he had never dared to say. Then run with me. The wind stopped. The world paused. Amina's lips parted. In disbelief, in fear, in hope. Cato, if I run, you live. And if I stay, you die on the inside. Silence. Thick, heavy, full of everything they could not say. Amina whispered. If we leave, they will hunt us. Cato nodded. If we stay, we lose ourselves. This was not a fairy tale. This was a choice with blood on both sides. Amina's voice shook. Would you risk your life for me again? Cato answered without hesitation. I never stopped. She looked at the palace, tall, glowing, filled with music. A golden cage. Then she looked at Cato, scarred, poor, brave. A man made of fire and loyalty. And she chose. Not as a princess, but as a woman who remembered the boy who saved her, and never stopped. Amina whispered. Cato, I will run. He exhaled, a breath he had held for years. But fate is never that kind. Because the moment she spoke those words, a voice called out behind them. Strong, sharp, unforgiving. Guards. They turned, and Prince Jabari stepped out of the shadows, smiling. He had heard everything. And he was ready to destroy them both. Prince Jabari stepped into the moonlight, arrogant, cruel, certain of his power. Around him, armed guards appeared like snakes rising from grass. Amina's breath froze. Cato's fists tightened. The prince smiled, a slow, poisonous smile. So this is the great love story. A princess and a nobody. Cato didn't speak. Because men like this did not deserve answers. The prince walked closer, face twisting with mock pity. You thought you could run, leave the palace, leave me. He stepped in front of Amina. Too close. You are mine. By treaty, by law, by power. Amina stepped back, not in fear, but in rejection. I will never belong to a man who sees me as a trophy. Jabari's smile died. You ungrateful woman. Your father offers you peace. I offer you a kingdom. And Cato offered me his life, she said quietly. That broke the last thread of the prince's patience. He turned to his guards. Take him, beat him, leave him alive just enough to watch me marry her. They moved, fast, ruthless, but they had no idea who they were fighting. Because Cato was not just a beggar. He was a man who had lived through fire. He grabbed one guard's wrist, twisted, stole his weapon in a single motion. Steel flashed. Blood spilled. Men fell. Amina watched, tears in her eyes, not of panic, but of pride. The prince stepped back, shocked. You dare fight me? Do you know who I am? Cato finally spoke. I know exactly who you are. He looked him dead in the eyes. You're the kind of man who will be forgotten. More guards arrived, 20, then 30. Cato's arms bled, his face bruised, his breath ragged. But he didn't fall. Not yet. Not while she watched. Not while she believed. Not while she loved him. Amina screamed. Cato, run. He shook his head, voice cracking. I will not leave you. It was madness. It was impossible. It was love. Amina pressed her hand to her heart, then whispered. Then I'll stay and fight too. She ran toward him. But the prince grabbed her by the hair, yanked her backward. You belong to me. Something inside Cato broke. He saw the fire again. Saw her small, crying, helpless. Saw the world trying to take her life. And he roared. A sound that was not human, but born from every hunger, every wound, every night he slept on dirt. He fought harder, faster, wilder. Even the guards stepped back, afraid. Amina reached for him, tears falling. Cato, but he was weakening. Too many men. Too many strikes. Too much blood. His knees hit the ground. Amina ran to him, held his face, her tears mixing with his blood. Cato, don't leave me. He tried to speak, voice barely a breath. You found me. Just like you promised. She broke. Her heart shattered. The prince stood above them, sword drawn. It ends now. But fate had one more twist. A voice thundered through the courtyard. Stop. Everyone froze. The king himself stepped forward, furious. He had seen everything. Not the rumors. Not the whispers. The truth. He saw the prince strike his daughter. He saw Cato bleed for her. He saw love that could not be broken, not by poverty, not by power. Slowly, he spoke. Release him. The guards obeyed, stepping away from Cato. The prince snapped. You promised her to me. The treaty. The king turned on him, eyes sharp as a blade. My word was given when I believed you a man of honor. I was wrong. The prince's voice rose. You cannot break a royal promise. The king answered without fear. Better to break a treaty than break my daughter. Silence. Amina helped Cato stand, her arms around him, her heart holding him upright when his body could not. The king looked at Cato, truly looked, and saw not a beggar, not a stray, not a fire-stained child, but a warrior with a heart forged in pain and loyalty. He spoke. You saved her once in fire. You saved her again tonight. Then, louder, for all to hear. No man is poor, who has a heart like that. Amina's breath broke with relief. The king turned to her. Daughter, do you choose him? She didn't hesitate. Yes. It was not a whisper. Not a secret. Not a dream. It was a declaration. Prince Jabari spat in rage. This is an insult. A disgrace. He has nothing. Amina stepped forward, eyes burning. He has everything that matters. And I would rather live poor with him than die rich with you. Jabari left in furious humiliation, his men trailing behind him. The treaty shattered, but something greater was born. Cato collapsed, exhausted, but alive. Amina held him against her, whispering, You fought the whole world for me. Cato managed a smile. No. I fought it to stand beside you. The king spoke one last time, not as a ruler, but as a father. If love brought you through fire, it will carry you through everything else. And that night, not in a grand palace, but in the quiet garden where they once confessed their hearts, Amina and Cato spoke the words they waited years to say. Not royal vows, not sacred oaths, just truth. I love you. I love you too. And this time, no fire came to take them away.